Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I am Brett Gilliland, and I am with Garrett Delph today. Garrett, how we doing?
Hey, doing great, Brett.
Awesome. Good to have you. We are thinking about your fellow Californians out there. I know you're in San Diego, but when we're recording this right now, the fires are going on out there, man. And just thinking of everybody out there, it's just awful.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Well, Garrett, you are, like I said, Garrett Delph. You are the founder and chief clarity officer at Clarity Ops LLC. You're a serial entrepreneur with a proven track record in founding 3 international businesses. But before we dive into all that great stuff, man, what has helped make you the man you are today?
The Lord.
I love it.
There's no other answer about that one, man. But I think what it takes a village, and I chose to try and be a good steward of the opportunities that I've been given, And ultimately, my journey in business led me down some paths that I did not know how to deal with, and I couldn't find solutions out in the marketplace or in the great people that I hired to solve them. And they, the kind of classic business problems, but also some new bushwhacking opportunities we were up against that nobody else was doing. So, long story short, there were a ton of unique challenges that we solved, and those produced new tools in my business toolbox over the years. And I'm now taking them to the market to help businesses not have to spend all that time, money, effort, and endure the delays that come with significant business problems to help them solve them in a fast and easy way.
Yeah.
So that's
are you finding a common theme today? Is there something that kind of just keeps playing out for entrepreneurs, business owners?
Yes. I think the primary thing is Gen Z hates chaos. The old guard was okay with it. They hated it, but they just determined that that's just how it's got to be.
It's part of life.
Gen Z is raising their hand and saying, I'll go find another job that'll pay me less than put up with all the chaos and disorder in the org. And so that's on one hand, I'm happy that there is kind of a spotlight being put on this problem. Yeah. But on the other hand, I'm kind of sad that it's still out there, because it's tough on people, and it's tough on the business. The stats are pretty clear. Still 9 in 10 businesses fail. Yeah. And I think that's largely in part due to an operational engine room issue,
What talk about the communication as a leader? What are you finding that you're helping people with that can help build the culture, keep the culture strong if they got a strong culture, or bring it up, obviously, if they have a weak culture?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the very standard challenges I see when it comes to communication, and by the way, like chief sinner here, and that is, management expectation gaps. Generally, leaders are going fast, and because of title and perhaps, seniority, they've been around, they tend to think they're being clear when in fact they're not. And so they'll go into a meeting and audibly, dictate, audibly share, audibly cast. But what leaders are typically bad at doing is distilling that into writing, publishing that to their fellow leaders or teammates that are going to deploy, and then giving them a chance to get it into their mind and heart and do a thing we call PAC, poke holes, ask questions, get clarity. And then make room for conversations around that to establish clarity. And so when you go through that process, and here's the challenge, it takes time, and that's a rub against patience, Yep. But the outcome there is always, really, really, really great. So I think just doing that sort of exercise alone will redirect a ship significantly, especially if it's adopted cross-functionally across all the functions in a business. And then I think, from a communication perspective, sorry to be dropping all the acronyms on you, but
No, it's good.
Little acronym we love to use. It's called PIE. Leaders should eat a slice of pie every day. And PIE stands for be professional, have integrity, and have EQ, or emotional intelligence. And when you eat pie in that way daily, and you combine that with these basic communication principles, again, radical transformation happens in the biz. And that has a whole cascade of really wonderful benefits and effects to the business and the people.
I love that. Let's talk about the poke. I think you called it, or PAC. I think you said poke holes, ask questions, get clarity, right? And so let's talk that. What's that look like? Because for me, I'm a big journal guy. I like to, if I have to deal with something and work on something or think about it or dream about it, I go to the journal and write and dream and strategize. And is that part of it? Like, what does that poke holes look like? How would we do that? So guys listen to this, gals listen to this. What would we do?
Yeah. So what I'm a big fan of is, as a leader, if you're in charge of communicating, what it could be vision, it could be strategy, it could be tactical operating procedures, whatever it is you're in charge of communicating, write it down. And write it down as clear as you can, and then give it to your people in writing. So that's what that part looks like. And then as a leader, what you do is say, all right, do you understand these? Let's go through them. And do you understand the direction? Do you understand what I'm trying to communicate? And I think this is the big key here, Brett, is as a leader, you have to authentically give your people permission to ask dumb questions. To literally, you have permission. There are no dumb questions. Every question is inbound, because our ultimate goal collectively as a team is to be razor sharp clear about where we want to go, why we want to go there, who's going to do what, and when do we want it done. And then, so that really opens up this really wonderful opportunity for people to get clear. And so they're poking holes. Hey, here's another thing, is they should be encouraged and given permission to say, hey, I think you got something wrong. Or, hey, based on our company culture, is that the right, can I challenge that maybe that's not the right path? This is good stuff, man. It's really, really good stuff, and it's hard, but the benefits far outweigh the uncomfortability. And once you establish a culture with these sort of tenets, it becomes normal. It's like, just putting in the reps, it becomes normal. And then you really start to see all the really great stuff come about.
Yeah. Well, I think, like you said, giving them permission, there is no dumb question, and amazing how some dumb questions actually turn into a great thing that leads to a new process at work. Right. Yep.
Totally. And, it really challenges the ego too. As a leader, usually you've been promoted, and so you're being paid more because you're smarter and you've been around the block. And so when a junior level, maybe mid-managed level comes in and starts to challenge perhaps your expertise, that's really where this gets interesting. What was that?
It's a shot to the ego.
Yeah. And I think that's where the E in PIE really begins to show up and bring a ton of value for a leader that might be struggling with some ego and perhaps secretly think that they're really right.
Talk about that EQ. How do you define it? The emotional quotient.
I had a really great chairman of my board for years. His name's Jeff Yoakum. Jeff, if you're listening, hey. And he taught me a really wonderful principle, which was, if something is going wrong in the business, your very first question to ask is, maybe it's me. Or your very first statement should be, maybe it's me. And so I think really emotional intelligence is rooted in humility. That, like, if I could, just succinctly define it, it's being humble. And out of, the birth of the seed of humility, just gives you, it helps your mind be open, and helps you, I think, calibrate reason.
Yeah, that's
and
solid.
and yeah.
And I mean, are you finding many leaders that aren't the best leaders, right? That they have very low EQ?
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see variations of that in all of us. By the way, I think this is one of those things that we're all of us are along a journey on that one. But especially in growth, like Brett, in growth-driven companies where speed and sort of like aggressive speed is a core value.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where that muscle is atrophied. Because of that mindset of charge,
Right.
and win at all cost.
Yeah.
And bulldoze,
Yeah.
And the problem with that is you end up bulldozing over really great people and missing a ton of stuff. Yeah.
I've found too over my career, I don't know if this is just getting older and doing something for 24 years, but it's, I used to be like every one of these goals, line item, and this is what you got to, and what I found is if I can have fewer goals, but then do those goals really, really well, you find more happiness and more, being more content. I don't really love the word content because I'm not content in a situation,
Sure.
but I think you know what I mean. But it's like, do you find that as well, that people are? I mean, you're not having to have 100 goals to try to go out and get it, because here's what's going to happen: you're going to miss some of them, and then it's going to be a complete failure, right? And then you get up and you do it all over again.
Yep, I think you're spot on. I see the same thing.
Yeah,
same thing. It's pretty normal to, it reminds me of the BHAG. And especially ambitious companies, they want to do a lot, and it's really hard to focus and simplify these big visions that we have into very focused, bite-sized chunk initiatives.
Yeah.
And I found out over the years, like I feel like this focus thing can be restructured. If I found that if leaders want to accomplish more, you have to strategically reorganize. And so, like, here's a good example. Let's say you have all of the correct resources in a business. And when I say resources, I'm referring to human capital and money. But you're overloading, when I say I'm talking about perhaps the C-suite, overloading their senior managers and mid-management with too many goals. And so I found that if you can maybe chunk those up into 4 lanes and use a framework to create, constrained focus, you actually can achieve more. Rather than having to slow up to adopt focus. Do you know what I mean? And so those 4 lanes would be strategy. So you take your strategy leaders and you put them in a strategic lane. And then you take sort of your maintain and support managers that are responsible for people and outcomes, and you almost force them to stay in that lane. And then you take your project managers, you do the same thing. And then you take your process builders and or iterators and make them stay there, and don't let them cross lanes. I found that to be, we call it the quad core management framework. And I found that to be kind of a magic pill, because it forces focus, It helps people load balance their workflows and their workloads.
Yep. Well, I like that, but I also think I always say stay in your lane, right? And like, I know my lane at work.
Yeah.
And so I try to stay really, really good at being in that lane and that lane only. And I think that's helped me in my career as well, right? Know your weaknesses, know your opportunities, and then hire really damn good people around you that can strengthen your weaknesses, your opportunities. Are you seeing that?
Yes, 100%. However, there's a pitfall that I've seen to that one. And by the way, I think I just commented on somebody's LinkedIn post about an hour ago. It said, great companies are built by great people. So to your point, you have to hire great people. There is a big fat lie out there. I call it the big fat lie, regarding hiring great people. And it comes with the sort of the suffix to that sentence, which is, and set them free. And that's where you get into trouble because, as founders, CEOs, senior level managers, we're disciplined. And so we know how to stay in our lanes. But if we don't communicate that to these great people that we hire, they go hog wild and lose their focus. And we don't want to touch them because culture has said, if you tell people what to do as a leader, you're micromanaging them. Mm-hmm. Right. And so that's sort of my commentary on that one. I really think you have to load balance. All of us need frameworks and instructions and guidelines. And I think that's kind of the idea there.
What would I find you doing daily just for your own success? Building a company, your family, all that kind of stuff. What would I find you doing daily, day in and day out?
It's great. I actually have it on my whiteboard right here. Map my daily routines, align my milestones to that map, have deadlines for them, and make sure they're measurable. And I try to do that in family, in person, and in business.
So let's dig into that a little deeper. So map my daily routines. Walk me through that process.
Yeah. So funny enough, I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about this, so I wrote them down. When I wake up in the morning, I do a mental mindset, and I just try to think about calibrating my brain and not letting it take over me, but I try to take over it. Try to exercise, just get some exercise in. Then I will try to read the Bible because that's my source of truth. So that's where I like to go. From there, I'll then look at my calendar and just do a quick calibrate what's coming up. I then take a look at my agendas with my teams. So we then talk about priorities for not only today, but for the remainder of the week and the following week. Then I like to create some content, whatever it is, and then get into meetings. And then
how many days a week are you doing that morning routine?
5 for sure. Yeah, Monday through Friday.
Yep.
The only part that I have written down as a plan to do, which I usually don't do a good job of doing, is try to wrap the day up and just do like a summary. Yeah. But I feel like I'm just like ready to shut it down. And
like, I'm done. Enough of being responsible. I'm done.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's key, man. I call it my Focus 90. I actually created my own journal and sell it on Amazon.
Oh, you did?
Here, plug intended.
I'm gonna have to get a hold of that, man.
So it's called Achieving a Future Greater Than Your Past, and with my name. Probably is how you can find it on Amazon. But anyway, it's 24 years of my work into one journal, and it's a 90-day journal. And so there's exercises before and after. But I think it's important that you have something that you write it down. My kids probably get tired of hearing me say this with technology and stuff. I'm like, no, write it down. It's a permanent tattoo in your brain, right? And so
I love it.
I love people's daily routines, and so I appreciate you sharing that and it's the same thing. Like I'm a very visual person. Like here's my weekly tracker. You can see the picture of my family up top here, and so
that's great.
I have all of my exercises, lined out, and then what I call, my additional mind and body training and. I just think it's important, man. And we go through, we can check the box and write it down and see that we've done it, because even checking a box or circling in the box, it's completion, right? You've done something. And then what I've found over the years is that helps, right? Checking it off really helps you. And once you do more stuff. So do you have routines like that you do?
You've probably done a bunch of research on that. I've heard that there is this sort of connect between the brain and actually writing these things out.
Yes.
Right, like literally, it sort of changes your synapses in your mind.
Yes.
Type thing.
Yeah. I call it a brain tattoo, and I read a book. It's a red book with the number 5 on it. That's all. It just says 5 on the front of it, and It's a great book, a short read. I don't know if you've ever read it or not, but it's I'd recommend it for anybody that loves this type of stuff. But it talks about that. There was a Harvard study done, if you've seen that study or not, but they
No.
followed I'm going to mess it up, but you'll get the point. Is they followed, say, 30 or 40 or 50 people, whatever it was, and they followed them for like a number of years, like 20 years. And the people that wrote their goals down, actually the 3 or 4 that did that every year were more successful than the other 37 people combined, those 3 people. And it was all because they wrote their goals down, right? And so I've been a believer in that for a long time. And so what are other things maybe that you have that, for me, it's the journal and the things I believe to my core.
Yeah.
What's something maybe you believe to your core that there's no way I'm going to be able to change your mind on this because you just know this works?
Guide me a little bit more, Brett, like as it relates to helping businesses transform, or as it relates to me as a person, or like
just, you as a person that, obviously you've been successful. And I know there's certain things like the journaling thing for me, for example, or what I call my Focus 90. I have my 90-day goals, and it's the first thing I do the first 90 minutes of every day. And I tell people that, and I believe you cannot change my opinion that it works, but I will have people all the time tell me, yeah, but you don't understand, man. I got to get up and I got to respond to emails. I got to respond to this thing that I got to do for work, or my boss needs this thing. I say, I get that, but let's focus on getting up a little bit earlier then. And whatever you can do, like the way you start your day and you win that morning, you will win the day. Like you can't change me on that. You may not do that, right? And super successful. But for me, that's just what I believe. And so do you have anything like that for you, for your success?
I do. I mean, I have a ton of principles, which maybe I'll just share a couple. One is a mentor of mine shared this with me early on, that being faithful, dependable, timely, and trustworthy in all that you do is transformative. Yeah. So
read those again.
Yeah. Faithful, dependable, timely, and trustworthy. So I try to apply those in everything that I do. So if I say I'm going to be to a meeting by X time, I purpose to always be there. If I say to a team, we're going to start a meeting at X time and we're going to end at X time, I purpose to make sure that we end that time. So so I respect what I set out for the agenda, and people then go, yeah, we needed to keep going, but we know that when we set the time, that's what he's going to do.
That's right.
Let's see what else. I have determined to rid myself of fear and anxiety at all cost. Because when you're saying, like, is there anything, no matter what somebody says to me, I'll never change my mind. I spent so many years being horribly anxious.
Smiling, I'm guilty of that as well.
Oh my God. Literally fretting, just like tearing me up inside. And I finally said, by God's grace, okay, I got to figure this out because it's going to kill me. It's like, and it's the worst way to live.
How did you do it? How'd you fix it?
Honestly, for years and years and years, I begged God to please help me. That is the truth, Brett.
Yeah.
And so over time, slowly, I began to have epiphanies about, breakthrough and how to get there. Yeah. And so, man, I sorry to bring all the religious stuff into it, but for me, there would be no other way.
I will tell you that's mine is my faith, meditation, and asking one question on every podcast has helped my journey. And that question I'll ask you, even since we're talking about it, is I've asked, you're the 415th person I've interviewed. And so I've probably asked this maybe 400 times. How many of the fears you put in your mind over all those years, how many of the fears you put in your mind actually blew up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
Exactly.
And how many is that, right? So how many of them?
Oh yeah. I couldn't even think of one right now.
No. And that's like my therapy, right? Through this is they hear that. I was like, hey, Brett, So the best I've been with my anxiety and fears in probably my whole life, in the last few years. And but you got to work on it, right? You can't just be like, oh, just go away. And you say, you spoke to God about it. But that wasn't like, hey, God, just help me get away with it. And you went on to something else, right? My assumption is there was time, time, right, spent with God doing that and getting to that point of working on yourself. Fair?
Totally fair and 100% correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like kind of like diet in the gym. Like if you stop dieting, you'll get fat again.
Yeah.
And if you don't go to the gym, then your muscles will atrophy, or at least if you're not doing, body weight.
Right.
And I found that fear and anxiety are the same way. And I also found that truth is a really important component of that. So like I had to start anchoring fear and anxiety to truth. Here's what that means. I had to start going, okay, the things I'm worried and anxious about, if they do come to pass, I still have to ask myself, is God perfect? Or was he down the street going, gee, I'm so sorry. I was helping out Brett. I totally spaced. Or I got
Forgot
too busy.
about you.
Right. Or I got too busy. I couldn't make it, And if it didn't come to pass, he's still God. And if it did come to pass, he's still God. And do I trust him? That's what I had to reconcile. Like, I do. And so for better or worse, I was like, slowly started going, okay, whether I feel like it's going good or I don't feel like it's going good, I can't stress out and be anxious. And then I started reading things like, God actually commands me to not be anxious. He must have good reason for that. Right. It's not even an option. He says, don't do it. Like a dad might say to his kid, don't do that. That's bad.
Yeah. I think what I'm taking there as well is, again, it's the time, right? It's the work you put in. It's rolling up your sleeves and getting into that. And in this case, we're talking about the Bible here, right? You're getting into his word. Yeah. That's the deal, right? So whatever somebody's struggling with now, it's time. And for me, it was my anxiousness was I had to study in my time was understanding what anxiousness is, like learning it, right? I tell people that I humbly but probably arrogantly, but also kind of jokingly, I feel like I'm an expert in anxiety, and I'm not a doctor. I've never gone to classes, but I've learned it and how to deal with it my entire life. It's putting in the work and understanding what the heck is actual anxiety. So when you have that feeling in your head, that rush that you have, or you have those heart palpitations, it's not a heart attack. Now, some people obviously have heart attacks. That's one of the leading causes. But my point is, for anxiety, that's the stuff I had to learn. So when I had those heart palpitations, I could be like, I see what you're doing here. I see that you're trying to make me anxious, right? And then that's when you go to your faith and your breathing and all this different stuff that you do. So I could talk about that for hours, but
my gosh,
about you and your podcast being on the podcast. So, I love that. So, go ahead.
Oh yeah, please. Well, I was going to say, and then something you mentioned triggered this thought. Then once you begin to have breakthrough, I don't know about what you experienced, is I was so used to feeling bad that when I began to feel good, it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so I felt bad for not feeling bad.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you're right. I mean, I would be like, okay, why do I feel this good? Like, where's the anxiousness coming? Where's it's coming? It's coming. Where's it at? And then
shouldn't I be stressing out right now? So you start to feel guilty for not being anxious.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. That's funny. That's very funny. That's good. It's good stuff, man. What, and kind of now I'm totally switching subjects here, going from fear and anxiety to AI, but are you seeing AI play a role in either your own life or a client's life? And if so, how are most people using it as leaders and just normal everyday people?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I'm still not seeing it adopted in strategic operations just yet. And when I say strategic, I'm not talking about using AI to answer customer service emails or, sort of horizontal layer integrations like that in service or sales departments. But like really automating supply chain, for example. Still not seeing that hit, but what I'm seeing in my own life and in the life of leaders is using AI Classic to do basic, super quick spell check, reformatting of really important presentations, deep research. I'm seeing that used a lot by leaders. One of my
It's called AI Classic.
No, just Classic. I was just saying Classic. Classic
okay.
AI. Yeah, kind of like everybody seems like the whole world goes to ChatGPT to figure out how to write a great email.
Right.
Or I was just a client up in Orange County, north here, about an hour or so. He was having his construction company. They're having their big annual meeting, and he needed to come up with a bunch of really great ideas for that meeting. He wanted it to be special, so of course, rather than brainstorming, he just went to AI, gave him this whole laundry list of great things to engage the people, and so I'm seeing a ton of that. Right.
Yeah. So that concerns me, right? Because look, we're all guilty of it, and what I mean by that is less for you and I at our ages, and we've been in the business for a while, but more for I think about my kids. I hope that they will be able to still have deep creative thinking versus anytime they want to think deeply, they just go type in this thing and let that tell me, and then I'll just go do that. Right. I don't think my kids are doing it, but who knows, right? And it's I just hope for our country that's happening, that people are still gonna be able to think deeply.
Totally valid. I think about that too, and my hope, but I have the same concern you do, but my hope is perhaps there will be just the transition of new strategic thinking in a new way that still flexes those muscles in the same way that you and I had to flex those muscles. Yeah. But I don't know, man. It's also, I get worried that the AI will begin to provide, which we've already seen, misinformation. So you take this sort of outcome as strategic thinking, and then you apply misinformation to really important problems, and now you have a much bigger problem.
Yeah. Well, I think too, then what can we trust going forward is if, I could take a picture of you like that. I could take a screenshot of you right now and then put a virtual background on anything, right? And put you in a spot, or I could, take your voice and turn it into something. And that's a concern, man. We gotta get some stuff going on that, I think. But But there's certainly lots of stuff that's going to go. We're like the people, like our grandparents, right? When the internet came out, or you got an email address, what is that? That's kind of what they say. This is going to be big. All this is going to be bigger than the internet. And that's crazy.
I was going to say, I heard a study recently. Some people in Silicon Valley, they were talking about what time period of technological innovations would we attribute this season of AI to? And they said, this is akin to 1996 with the internet. If you compare the internet now to then, that's where AI is currently.
Yeah. Wow.
And right now it's already, blowing our mind.
Right.
Have you used any of the code, the AI code, no code developer platforms?
No.
Yeah. So there's a few. There's Cursor, Lovable, there's Bolt.new, a few others. And you should go check it out sometime. It's mind blowing. You literally go on these platforms and say, build me a lead gen form and attach it to my Salesforce. And then it'll say, cool, anything else you want me to know before I build, or you want me to just take into consideration all of the best practices and go build it for you? And it will go build front end and back end code, spin up, and you actually could push it live.
Wow.
It's it's
mind blowing.
It really, yeah.
You said Cursor, and then there's Bolt.new.
Bolt.new. There's Lovable is another one. There's several, but that's just a simple example. You can build, I've built, just from my own experimentations, built full blown, we'll call it MVP, but MVP enterprise applications for Clarity Ops and projects we're working on. I'm not a developer. I've always hired our developers, right? And the reason I think this is fascinating is our go-to-market strategies have always been contingent on our smart engineers being able to execute the vision. But now, with some, even below level basic English prompting, if you know just a little bit, you speed up 100x. Yeah. What used to take 10 developers
and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Millions.
Millions of dollars.
This is nutballs,
Yeah.
So anyways, that you were asking about AI, that's a big one that I've really been blown away by.
Have to check that out for sure.
Yeah.
Where do our listeners find more of you? Like what would you say your day-to-day, who you're focused on? I know your mission is helping, medium to large businesses transform, but kind of take it from there and give a little commercial on how you can serve people.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Well, my primary focus, I call it, is the engine room. And so most of where I spend my time is kind of Lean Six Sigma stuff. So taking a look at the org chart and taking a look at the functions in the org chart and where the business is falling short of their outcomes, which typically the root causes of those things are broken processes in the supply chain, legacy tools, incorrect alignment of data to instructions, all of these moving parts that, generally over time fall prey to the law of entropy, where they just kind of keep moving into disorder. And so my forte is to go in and sort of peel back the proverbial onion, find the root causes of the things that are causing profits to decline, preventing scale, creating cultural challenges and battles, high employment churn, producing waste and inefficiencies, and then reassemble and reorganize those to fix them. And this is important, not for a one-time fix, but to design them in a way that they fix in perpetuity and sustainability, and also are simultaneously empowered to the people in an easy way to drive, because complexity is the enemy. Yeah. So I know it's a mouthful, but that's
what you do.
That's what I do. Yeah.
That's what you do.
It's pretty rewarding. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Where do our listeners find more of you?
Yeah. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate that. I'm on LinkedIn. Garrett Delph is my handle. And the website is clarityops.co.
clarityops.co. All right. We will put this in the show notes and send people your way, man. Awesome.
Brett.
Garrett, thanks so much for your time today, man. It's been a great conversation, and really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and joining us on the Circuit of Success.
Yeah. Well, Brett, I appreciate you having me. It's been a real privilege. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Stay with me here. Hang on.